so you know I'm like a pretty positive person, but we're starting this podcast with some fucking anger because why is the UFC not
Yeah, let's
promoting
get.
UFC
That's smart.
24?
We should just get it out. You
I,
know.
yeah, I mean, they tell you not to hold things in,
Yeah.
and we talked
We
about it a little
could.
bit last week, but this is getting outrageous. I think we need to talk about it. So
We need
next,
to talk about it because UFC won't talk about it.
yeah, no, power slap is too important and tough, but tough is important in a way. But anyway, we'll get to the big fight that's next week that the UFC is really not hyped up at all besides their countdown video, which was awesome, but they do that for every event, so it's nothing like different. Because this fight in particular, you know, we've talked about it before. Islam Makhachev versus Alex Volkanovski, 155-pound champ versus the 145-pound champ. 23-1 versus 25-1 in the midst of their primes. Like, this is one of the best fights that the UFC will ever put together, and you would not know it by how it's been promoted. I mean, you sent me that video of Dana completely
In Volkanovski's home country too.
Yeah, you think that would like be a huge thing, like, but no, they don't even talk about that. But like you sent me the thing, Dana doesn't even remember Islam's name. Like, oh my god, like what is he's put, dude. I said this to you like a little bit before the pod, but I think some of it is the fact that he's probably like paying more attention to power slap, for now.
Yeah, I mean, and all the other, outside.
Just drop my phone, but that's fine. You
Yeah,
can keep
so
talking.
that's all right, but
Okay.
even all the other, freaking, like, which is like good, like all the other business ventures, like good for you and all, Dana, but like, you realize it, which I'm sure he does realize, considering obviously what he said earlier in the year, like, the fight, I forget how it was exactly, but along the lines of the fighters, basically the UFC needing him, just as
Can't
much,
run
like,
without him,
yeah,
dude.
can't run
Can't
without
run
him.
without him.
So yeah, you would think that this would still be like, at especially a fight like this and all the other fights that, like, dude, you have John Jones coming back, you have Conor McGregor coming back. You would think all the other, like, all these other fights too that the UFC has lined up for this year, and
They have been promoting those, but and more than this one, and this one's next, like literally this coming week. I don't even understand. Like, I was watching like a lot of fights, like to break it down like at a technical level, like in a little bit, but it's crazy. Like I'm barely closer now than I was before, but I'll tell you this, like I'm even more hyped because you watch these guys fight, and they're so technical, and they're truly two of the best in the world in like that range of weight, and they're fighting in their primes. Like that's a big thing for me. Like nobody's past their prime. This is one of these fights that you barely get in combat sports, and the fact that it's a champion versus champion fight too in Volk's backyard, like you mentioned, and like this fight basically fell on Dana's lap, and it's just I don't know. I think that it's tough that this fight hasn't been promoted the way it should be because this is a type of fight, in my opinion, that would get so many new fans into it. Like if they don't know who these guys are before, if they watch this fight, I think it's going to be one of the best. Like that we'll see. I mean, the matchup is fantastic, but I don't know. What would be your early like lean in this one? Like, do you have like because I obviously now that it's closer, I really tried to like think about it a little more, but I'm still kind of torn. I'm gonna pull up the odds.
I think my lean's Volkanovski. I think I've just seen more of him just like, in just tough, bad like situations and predicaments, and not like, he just has that mindset and mentality of like, like he understands like he's not Superman and he's not invincible. He's got, he can be exposed just like everyone else can, especially in this fight with, his opponent obviously, but I just feel, I think the way he just like, I get reminded of, what was it, the Ortega fight where he was on his back and how he has to work from his back and stuff. Like, I just think he's just, his composure when he's in there all the time, like, he just oozes confidence throughout. You don't ever see him get like phased. And I mean, this is gonna, I guess like I guess you'd only see that if like if Makhachev just straight just tires him out with grappling and wrestling for all 5 rounds, and like you just see like you kind of see Volk fade and stuff, in which case like Makhachev's gonna have the upper hand. And then obviously with Volkanovski coming up a weight class too.
It's
You know,
interesting to
so
think about because his speed is going to be affected, but I still think he's going to be the faster fighter.
yeah,
But
I
then you
think
wonder how his cardio is going to be with the extra weight. So
exactly, yeah, because he's gonna be doing a lot of. I think he's gonna be need to do a lot of moving in this
yeah,
fight.
if he's not getting up, you know what I mean? Because even getting up is going to be a tough thing.
Yeah,
but I still
like,
think
and then
I
on the
think he's
feet
gonna.
too, like just a lot of circling. You don't want to get backed into the cage, and you don't even want to get in any clinch situation with Makhachev either.
Yes,
So.
I was thinking that too. My thing when I was watching him fight, he's very good at like. I think he was doing this a lot against Chad Mendes, Volkanovski when he fought him. He would hit him with elbows to get out of it, and I think that's something that's big that he should do against Islam. I think Volk is going to be pressuring in this fight 100%. I think Islam will be the one on the back foot, and I don't think that's a bad thing for Islam either. I think Islam can work either way. But Volkanovski's always been like the aggressor in his fights, besides maybe versus Holloway. Because in that one, that was just like a car crash. But in this fight, I just think that I think Islam is gonna have to mainly use like the clinch and the wall. Like I think double legs and single legs are gonna be hard against a guy like Volkanovski. And even if he gets him down, I think Volkanovski can pop right back up. Because the thing with like these Dagestani wrestlers is like they have this crazy strength, and that's something that I'm intrigued to see if it's gonna be a big thing. Because I talked about for the Oliveira fight how much I thought that strength was gonna be a factor. But one of the things that I really was kind of like gathering when I was watching fights for this one is like I think both of these guys are going to be shocked at how strong the other one is. And really this is going to come down to if Islam can hold Volk down. And he's not just going to be able to wrap his legs because Volk is like shorter and he's going to be able to explode out of that a little easier than some of these lightweights. And I do think that Volk is that guy. Like I think he's pound for pound number one for a reason. I mean, we've been talking him up on this pod for a long time. And this is really the fight where it's like, it's going to be tested because if he wins this fight, man, this is like getting near GOAT status.
Well, I would definitely give you that credit. You've been on before, like way before he was number one, like officially number one in the pound for pound rankings. Like, cause I was still about Usman being on top over Volk, and then you were on the Volk horse before, like Usman lost his title, and obviously now Volk is like at this point where he is. So yeah, like once again to like kind of bring back the convo from last week about is it Volkanovski like still underrated, like how you can be number one in the world and still be underrated. This fight is going to it's going to answer a lot of questions. And then another thing I mentioned last week about the Khabib factor, who's not going to be in Makhachev's corner. Like
I don't see that. Well, I shouldn't say I don't think it's going to be a factor because I do.
Well, yeah, for Makhachev in particular, maybe not, but it's still.
It's just like I
a thing.
Would hate if Volkanovski wins and then people start to use that as an excuse because like Islam's fought without Khabib in his corner. Like this isn't the first time that this has ever happened. So like if people like, and I'm not saying like you because obviously I know you're just bringing up a point because it is a point. Like it definitely matters. Because this is someone who's been with him since he was a kid, pretty much. So I think that it definitely is like a factor. But if anyone uses that to diminish like a Volkanovski win, I think that'd be criminal. And I think there's ways for like both of these guys to win. Like I literally wrote down like a bunch as I was like just watching like the fights. One thing that I noticed that I didn't even think of really coming in, but like when you watch the fights, you start to like think more technically about it. But Islam Makhachev's a southpaw, so like Volkanovski has an inch reach advantage. But the fact that that Islam is going to be fighting in that opposite stance, he's going to be like a little bit more out of range than he would be if he was standing the same way. And like that's obviously important. I mean, we've literally been doing that like in your training for the boxing match. Watch Main Card Tiz if you haven't. Episode 1 is out. But yeah, we got that secret juice. I forgot to put it out last week. I was pissed, but. I think, speaking of water, I think for Islam to win, he's going to have to drag Volk into the deep water, like you said. And I think it's going to have to look, honestly, a lot like the main event yesterday looked with Spivak and Lewis. Like, I think that Islam's going to have to take him down relentlessly. Because on the feet, Islam's a good striker. Like, people shouldn't sleep on his striking because he's got power. But Volkanovski, I think, is a top 2 to 3 striker in the sport. So it's different when you're on the feet with that guy, just like it's different when you're on the ground with Islam. That's like why this fight's so intriguing, because both of these guys are incredible in their own ways, but then even in the other person's wheelhouse, they still have like strengths, and like there's reasons to think that maybe Volk won't dominate as much as we think he would on the feet, or maybe Islam won't be able to control Volk easily on the ground. Because I truly think that neither of these guys have seen anyone like the other. I think this is like truly pound for pound number one versus number two. But the more I
think especially Makhachev.
Yeah.
Like Volkanovski's cleared out an entire division.
Yeah. It's crazy to think about that.
Beat Max Holloway twice.
Three times.
That's right. Yeah,
Three
like
times.
that's great. Like that is unheard of. So.
And beat Aldo. I mean, I think Volk. You could make the argument that he's the greatest featherweight of all time. I think if he wins this fight, he's in like legitimate. Not like now. Let me be clear about this. Like I'm not saying like he is the GOAT, but when you start winning fights like this against a guy who really not a lot of people are picking him to beat. If Volk can win this fight, man, and he'll be 26-1 with a win over Islam, then you already mentioned the wins over Holloway. He's beaten Aldo, Mendez, Ortega, Korean Zombie. Like, this dude's resume holds up, and he's proven that he is the dude that you don't want to mess with. And I like his mentality coming in, too, because he's not afraid.
And he takes a lot of pride in just being active.
Yeah.
Just being in there and just taking on all comers.
And this is truly that type of fight because, not a lot of people want to fight Islam. He wants this. Very much wants this. But he has, like, I don't know, because, you hear all the people. Everybody already knows how Islam can win this fight. It's taking him down, holding him down is a key. I think that he's going to have to use his upper body a lot more than his lower body, personally. And the thing is, I think he would have to, in my opinion, I think it'd be smarter to use ground and pound against Volkanovski rather than just straight submission attempts. Because you were talking about the Ortega fight. I mean, he escaped that one mounted guillotine that was fully locked. So this dude's not exactly easy to submit.
Yeah,
even
Brian Ortega too, of all people. Yeah, absolute freak, jiu-jitsu freak.
See, this is my thing. On the feet, it's just different with Volk because his feints are just something else. He's got such a good jab when it's coming forward and as a counter. I think he's going to kick the shit out of Islam's legs too. I mean, Islam puts a lot of weight on that front leg. I think Volk would be smart to, he should be careful about it, obviously, because all it takes is one catch of that leg and then you're down. But Volk is so good at managing his range. And he's training with some good people. He trains at a gym in Thailand too, with his coaches that he's had at City Kickboxing. But Yuri trains there. Zhang Wei Li is trained there, and I didn't even know that. And he brought in Craig Jones too, again for this camp. And Craig Jones, for anybody who doesn't know, probably the number 2 grappler in the world, in jiu-jitsu. So he's got the training partners for this,
Sheesh.
but. Then you think about Islam's training partners and how you hear that Habib's gym does it. The way Bilal Muhammad explained it on Joe Rogan, that shit's like a gauntlet. So, these guys are, sparring hard. And, it's crazy. You're almost fighting, in these places. And these dudes have, the craziest discipline that you'll ever see. And this is what I'm saying. You could go on and on about these guys and how good they are at everything that they're really good at because they're both so good everywhere, on the feet, on the ground, submissions, ground and pound. It's unbelievable. And this fight, this is why I wanted to talk about this so much because this fight deserves its due promotion. You know what I mean? I would pay $1 million to watch this fight. And we were talking about the UFC a little bit when they raised the pay-per-view price, talk about how this is going to drive viewers away. But if there's one card that I would say is worth the money that they're charging for it, this would be the one. The undercard is good. It's not the craziest that we've ever seen, but this main event, I think, is one of the best that they've ever made in the sport, not just the promotion in the sport. And I think it's going to live up to the hype. But I agree with you. Back to your first point, I'm leaning towards Volk.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure.
This is as far as betting goes, it's not a fight to bet on. I don't think
it's tough. Oh, I was gonna tell you the odds before when I pulled them up, but
Islam's
a heavy favorite.
Heavy favorite.
Minus 400 on FanDuel.
So I think a hedge is fair, but
DraftKings.
in that case, but I didn't think the odds would be that,
Yeah, Volk. According, this is like, I mean, I could pull it up on like FanDuel or DraftKings on my phone, but like I'm on just like one of those sites that has like all the sports books. So, like DraftKings, Volkanovski's a plus 300 underdog, and FanDuel he's plus 285. So.
Yeah,
I might put some money on
think,
that.
I mean, I'm sure Volkanovski realizes that, like, yeah, you're the one coming up in the weight class, so like, you're the one switching weight classes, so you have to be the underdog by default, pretty much. But I think the thing with Volkanovski is he's pretty much kind of like carried that underdog mentality like his entire career.
Isn't it unbelievable that someone could be pound for pound number one in the world and they're the underdog? Like that this is crazy. Like this is one of the best fights ever, dude. I'm sorry.
That's the answer to Chael Sonnen's question.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like really, like this dude's an underdog and he's the best fighter in the world. Like right now, obviously John Jones is coming back and that's gonna be crazy in March.
Good for Volk. He just keeps like finding ways to just evolve and just keep putting not just his name out there, but like just the sport and just like UFC in general. Like all these guys, he's like you just mentioned his featherweight resume, and now you're moving up to lightweight, who have a cream of the crop of just killers of their own. You're facing the champion,
and you beat Islam in your like first UFC lightweight fight. Jeez, man, that's incredible. And the thing with Islam is when he's at his best, it looks like he's unstoppable. But one of the fights I did watch, and granted it was a long time ago, but it was his one loss in the UFC, and like. Even when he's throwing now, he has this power and he's slick and he's very fast with his striking, but he does like leave himself open occasionally, and like that's against a guy like Volkanovski, that's tough. And I know like me and you are leaning towards Volkanovski, but like I should give Islam his due because he is great on the ground. Like this is the thing, if Volk can't get up, he's probably screwed. Like that's the biggest thing here. Like all the things that I'm talking about is if he can get up. I just personally believe that he can. But if Islam can really drown him, then this could be a really long night for Volkanovski. That's why I said I'm back and forth. Like if I had to say what my prediction was, it's Volk 51-49. Like I can't really choose confidently. And I don't believe anybody who has like a definitive answer besides like I get it if you're on one of their teams, but that's different.
I don't have one.
Yeah, it's just impossible. So if you're coming to us for a prediction, you're not going to get a solid one. But people, if anyone has a solid one, they're fucking lying to you.
Yeah.
That's my view of it. But get this pay-per-view next week. Watch it however you can because this main event is going to be incredible. But I guess another event that we should talk about, and probably one of the reasons why this hasn't been propped up as much as it should have, but Tough 31 just got announced. Conor McGregor is coach versus Michael Chandler, so the return of Conor McGregor is set. No date yet, but I think the Tough season is from May to August, so I would imagine that the fight is probably going to be in like September, like the Ortega Volkanovski one, and then all the other ones we've seen.
Is McGregor the first repeat Tough coach?
Nah, definitely back in the day, there was probably a couple like Chuck Liddell, Randy Couture, like people like in those era.
Yeah, oh jeez.
Yeah, because those those ones best ever.
Yeah,
those seasons were great.
Yeah, Tough was that was I mean that was like part of like the UFC's just straight like just rise to just like mainstream stardom and all that. Like
Tough
now it's
ones.
like now it's now like after like it wasn't even going on until what was the Tough 29 was the return
Ortega
season.
and Volk. That was that fight.
Yeah,
so
now it's kind of like
all
like,
circles back.
yeah, like an MMA reality show, which is fine, but like back then, like man, like I mean, dude,
it was
like,
fun back then.
The Forrest, literally the Forrest Griffin Stephan Bonner fight saved the promotion. So that speaks for itself.
Yeah,
but,
of course. I mean, rest in peace, Stephan Bonner.
When
I think of Tough, also like I think of like season 5 is one of my favorite seasons with Nate Diaz. I remember Rob Emerson writes on the wall, he's like, "Suck it, Team Pulver." And Nate
Yeah.
Diaz like literally took it personally. He's like, "Well, I'm Team Pulver." He's like, "So I just took that personally." He's like, "Yo, whoever wrote "Suck it, Team Pulver." He's like taking his
just
shirt off.
a bunch of unhinged dudes just in the same house.
Yeah, in that season, dude, there was like a fight in the back like area, and the one dude like slammed the one guy on his head on the concrete.
Yeah,
And they got kicked
yeah.
off the show.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Tough back in the day was some interesting stuff. Another one that I like was it was the season, I think Brendan Schaub was on this season, but it was like Rampage versus Rashad Evans. And Rampage had a beef with the one dude at heavyweight because he kept calling him titties, and then the guy literally like just like squared up with him, and like Rampage was like, "Dude," he's like, "Come on." But
I remember
love
Dana
those
when
old
he
moments.
got after the outside incident when I forget the names, but when you just said about how he got slammed on his head, I remember
Yeah.
Dana just going like, "This is exactly why people think we're barbarians," and now you fast forward to now and he's running a whole freaking
Power
slap league. Dudes
Yeah.
can't defend themselves and just.
Yeah,
Just
it doesn't
drop
help.
it.
It doesn't
Yeah,
help the legitimacy. But I'm happy that Tough is coming back. I think that McGregor is definitely going to bring a lot of eyes to it, and I think that this could help in reviving like that show, because the last 2 seasons are fun, but like the drama wasn't crazy. And you look at those early seasons, obviously we're talking about all this drama, and that was what made Tough what it was. And I think with Conor McGregor there, you're bound to have some fireworks, and you got Chandler who's gonna be saying corny shit the whole thing. You know what I am looking forward to though? I'm looking forward to when Chandler's coaching these dudes or ladies. I don't know what weight classes it's gonna be. I'm not sure if they said, but I'm excited for his motivational talks with the guy because he's gonna be dropping some gems, like some great life advice. I'm ready to be motivated by Michael Chandler in Tough 31, and I'm ready to hear some McGregor shit talk. Because this is gonna be good, and I was thinking about this too. I think Talking Tough season 2 is definitely gonna be a thing.
I've always just liked and respected like the concept of the Ultimate Fighter. Just like this, like the most like intent. What is it like the how the tagline goes, like this is like the most intense or whatever job interview like
I think that's actually the Contender Series.
Oh,
but it's all.
Well,
it's
yeah,
all
then that's why Tough wasn't even a thing for like the past a few years and stuff because of the Contender Series, and now we're trying to prop up the Contender Series. So
yeah, I mean, it's produced some great fighters now, like because now we're seeing some people get to the top. But Tough is fun, man.
The challenge, and then how the coaches themselves face off in the octagon afterwards is always awesome. Fun. So,
and this is a huge fight. Like any Conor McGregor fight is automatically a huge one, but versus a guy like Michael Chandler.
Well, yeah, and his return fight, Conor McGregor's first fight in almost 2 years.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to think. When did I go? It'll be over 2 years at that point because 21. That's nuts. Because it's definitely gonna be in the fall. Because McGregor still has to be in the USADA testing pool. So
for Michael Chandler too, like good on him. I think he knows what he wants out of like at least maybe not his MMA career as a whole, but I mean I guess his MMA career as a whole. But he just wants the biggest fights and just like the most.
Dude, he's starting again though. He's starting. I can't take it. I'm already I posted about it. Like I'm reading the quote. I gotta like read it word for word because you know how he is, dude, with the "see you at the top" stuff. And this is no disrespect. Like I like Michael Chandler. I think he's a great dude. I think he's so fun to watch. But this is what he said. Where is it? Okay, I could literally like in my head I read it in his voice, but I don't know if I can do a Chandler impression. Yeah, man. He goes, he's gonna feel my presence from the very beginning of the fight, and then from there, wherever the fight takes us. You gotta cut it like
the most WWE style promo ever.
If I want to pick him up and put him down, I can pick him up and put him down and put a beating on him and get a submission that way. I believe I finished Conor in the second round. That's my Mystic Mike take on this. Later on this year, whenever it is. He's so corny. I can't take it. It's so corny. Like I hope that McGregor just roasts him a little bit during this season.
But something I was seeing was so Arman Sarukian was trying to throw his hat in the ring and all of that. Like he's trying, because he's obviously trying to like this is a guy who's trying to get to the top too. But
I'm glad you're bringing this up.
Now it's like he's kind of being held down by these top guys. And I saw a tweet along the lines of like, oh, like Chandler ignoring or like just disregarding Sarukin's call out, like
I mean,
it worked.
he is the king of like ducking up and coming.
Well, yeah, and the
contenders.
thing is, he didn't really it's not like he ignored it, or he literally acknowledged and responded to it, and like just scoffed at it.
It's
and
very
was like,
cocky to like be calling your shots.
Like I
when
get
you're
it,
not.
I get it, but like the way he words it, dude, like you were just saying how it's like all how corny it is and stuff, like how what like. Because his last name starts with a T. Like, what did that have to do with
Silent
anything?
T.
Yeah,
I'll give him that. That was kind of funny, but that might have been the funniest thing he said in the past 3 years. But I don't like it because he's done this before. Like, you remember when Islam called him out and he was like, "Yeah, he's good, but I don't." I love like when he says, "Well, he hasn't fought anybody." That's why he's calling you out. Like, if you're so good, then let me be clear though. If I was, like, put me in this situation, if I was offered a Conor McGregor fight versus an Arman Saryukian fight, I'd have to be on something to take the Saryukian one. You know what I mean? Like, McGregor's red panty night. Everybody knows that. And Chandler, like you said, he wants these huge fights. And, yeah, it holds up the division, which is messed up. But at the end of the day, I can't fault him for this.
It's good to have want these huge fights and stuff. But, like, if you want to keep the "see you at the top" saying going, then like you gotta actually you gotta win some of them too.
Yeah, well, we'll see how this one goes. The thing is, he's been saying the same thing. I'll use my wrestling. I'll use my wrestling. It's the same pattern every fight.
You keep getting these fights you want, and like the Gaethje fight, for instance, which he had in the bag.
That was a winnable fight.
And then like just kind of let go, just to keep just being Michael Chandler and just putting on a show for everybody.
It's like, every fight, dude. Like, it's why you can't make a
prediction. You want to be at the top, like you're gonna have to especially if you're not winning these fights, like you're gonna have to fight. Like you're gonna have to fight fights that you have to fight that you don't necessarily want to fight. Like that's just it.
If he fights Conor the way that he fought Tony Ferguson, I think this is gonna be very bad for Conor McGregor. But if he fights him the way that he fought Gaethje, the way he fought Poirier, then this is a much more even fight.
I mean, I guess with with things that get just naturally with things that get a lot of hype around them, like there's just gonna be the people that try to bring it down and hate and stuff. I guess in that with this for that crowd was people saying like, oh, it should have been Tony Ferguson.
And I think that too, but that I can't hate this matchup.
Yeah, I can't hate it either. I mean, it's been a rough few years for Tony Ferguson too, so I just it was if Tony's gonna Tony Ferguson could keep going, you just want him to have the best fight possible. You want to see.
I like the Nate Diaz matchup, albeit accidental, but
which sucked. But
yeah, well, we can thank Khamzat for that one.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm hyped for that season. Like I said before, I think there's definitely going to be a season 2 of Talking Tough, and I have a feeling that this season is going to be a good one.
There should, yeah.
I'm excited for that, genuinely. But I guess we can get into a couple of the fights from this weekend. The UFC, this is UFC Vegas 68 now. And I heard something that they're going to be like trying to get away from the Apex later in the year, like for good, pretty much. Like they'll probably have a card here and there.
I saw that the Marlon Vera and Corey Sandhagen fight got moved from the Apex to an arena.
That San Antonio card in
so
March.
that's a positive sign. But
yeah, I think that they're going to be trying to do. And how about Blanchfield getting that main event now versus Santos? I love that. That's going to be fun after next week's card. But back to UFC Vegas 68. Obviously, mainly, there's really the thing I want to talk about is the main event because Sergey Spivak just mauled Derek Lewis.
Yeah.
Dude. What were your thoughts on that?
Shoot, man, that felt like a message. That felt like a message to John Jones and Cyril Gane. Now, probably so if we're gonna talk about that fight real quick in terms of predictions and stuff, come on, you can't really bet against John Jones until you legit see him lose. It doesn't matter how long he's been gone for. John Jones is in a fight. You're more than likely putting you're betting on his side.
I'll tell you this, for me personally, if Francis Ngannou can out-grapple Cyril Gane, John Jones is going to manhandle Cyril Gane. That's
so I'm thinking, so assuming Cyril Gane loses, I think a fight between him and Spivak might not be that, far out of the picture. Honestly, I think like Cyril Gane would need like one more fight, one more win to get back at to a title shot, and like maybe Spivak is that fight. Who knows? But you also got to think of a guy like Tom Aspinall. He's still yet to come back, and like he's gonna shake up things. But John Jones as heavyweight champion, like one way or another, is gonna
That's gonna change.
It's gonna be a crowd. It's gonna be a real crowded like top of the heavyweight division. So a guy like Spivak, it's gonna a win like this in that fashion, like is definitely exactly what he needs to like throw his hat in the ring and like maybe get that opportunity. But
I love the John Jones call out for Spivak. I thought that was smart.
Yeah,
I love that he learned English
I didn't
too
even
to do it.
I didn't even see the call out, but there you have it. Like
I loved it. And dude,
the way he won
his grappling is something else.
Yeah, dude, that was like wow, that was unbelievable.
Yeah,
and it's just for Derek Lewis too. Like man, like
it's unfortunate.
I don't like by no means is Derek Lewis done, but
it's a tough matchup.
Yeah,
I mean you can't even...
I don't know, man. Like the gate, I guess like the gatekeeper status might just be
be there at this point.
Yeah, unfortunately.
It was tough. I honestly believe that Derek Lewis was going to win this fight. Like, I definitely saw the potential for Spivak to do what he ended up doing.
I mean, because I was seeing, everyone was talking about the side-by-side picture, too, of Derek Lewis in this camp and how in shape he was and stuff. But
yeah, and you hear, and every time he's, like, I remember when he fought Curtis Blades, he was very, like, similarly motivated. And obviously, remember, he starched Curtis Blades in that fight. And every time, like, I think that Lewis is, like, motivated, he seems to do a little better. But I think in this one's just a bad matchup.
I didn't even really put much stock into it. I was just putting more stock into, all right, I think Derek Lewis is just going to fight this a lot more, like, calculated. And just, like, not, like, straight, like, yeah, it's a heavyweight fight at the end of the day. But especially with an opponent like Spivak, like, you can't just go, like, you can't just look for the kill, like, just straight from the bat. I think that's the guy, like, you got to feel out and, like, you gotta fight the fight. You can't fight it at his pace and then just let him just do what he did to Derek Lewis. So, from
the second takedown on, Derek's like body language completely changed. Like he was getting up, but the mat returns were nuts.
He wasn't ready for that, and you can't blame him. That was just an incredible performance by Sergey Spivak. So
it was something else.
Huge
like
win.
Those
Good
mat returns are.
Even though it happened at like 3 a.m., but
like I said, I was kind of half in, half out during Bellator because of that, and like eventually I actually woke up just in time for the main card for UFC, which was phenomenal, and I caught like some of the Bellator stuff later on, but I was all that to watch Derek Lewis lose, which is like it sucked, dude. Cause I won't lie to the viewers. I put a little money on him by knockout because I was and. How can you blame me? I mean, like, if Spivak didn't do that, that's the way the fight would have gone. Like, it's one or the other in that case. So it was really 50-50 if you think about it. But, yeah, no, Spivak definitely lived up to the hype in that one and made sense why he was such a decent favorite now. So,
yeah.
Derek Lewis, it's tough. But, like I said, when you're getting mat returned constantly like that, you just saw like the technique go out the window after like the second or third time, and he just looked lost in there, really. Yeah. And he fell like right into that arm triangle too. It was like so clean, and he tapped like right away. It was one of those things. It just looked like it was over.
Like Spivak tried for the arm that Derek Lewis got out of the first time around, and he still managed to win with the arm triangle. Yeah. At heavyweight, like. That's a problem. So
yeah, for me, it's just if he can do it for 5 rounds, because it's like that's a relentless pace.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I think when he gets towards the top of the division, I think it'll be more interesting when it comes to those upper level opponents, like guys like maybe I don't think he might fight Stipe, but guys like that who have the grappling credentials, like Curtis Blades, even Tom Aspinall. He's a good grappler
Blades,
too.
Man, that would make it. Awesome fight.
I want to see him versus Pavlovich. That might even have been made at this point. I don't even know, but I know like they were already talking about that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel bad for Derek Lewis. It sucks. Such a fan favorite. The guy was well on his way to that championship like status, but
well, when you run into DC, I mean,
that
sucks. It sucks.
John Jones freaking coming back as a heavyweight, like
probably doesn't help. Probably doesn't help.
Yeah, that more than likely doesn't help whatsoever.
Because DC like
Especially
screwed him up on the ground.
Yeah.
That was a pretty bad one. That looked a lot like this fight, but Spivak did it a lot even easier than DC did. But besides that fight, the only other one that I really kind of wanted to talk about, because I thought it was cool that Doo Choi came back and he fought to a draw against Kyle Nelson. But my main question is, I don't know, did you see like the headbutt that they took the point away for? What do you think of that? That's like my main question. You thought it was wrong?
Messed up.
I think one warning
I think
would have been
enough. I think Choi like had that fight, like, you know. So the first round was very close. I think Choi just returning and all, like,
3 years.
You know, yeah.
So
he got like a, you know, like just kind of like, yeah, just trying to like get his feet wet again and his legs under him, and then from there, like, he looked like pretty comfortable. I mean, he lost the second round, but that third round, like, it seemed like okay, like, you know, as long as the judges don't, you know, watch some completely other fight like they tend to do, like, I think this would be a good win for Doo Choi. And then, like,
I thought, took it in his own hands.
that was a little too much. I think.
I would have liked at least a warning. I will say this though, I do like a ref taking a point for an illegal strike, but one warning. Like, you got to give a warning. Like, and that wasn't on purpose either. You could tell he did that by accident. And I just think one warning, then maybe do it. And people would still think that's too soon, but I'm kind of in the Aljamain Sterling school of thought, and the fact that, you know, how many tries are you going to give him? Like, in my opinion, it should be one warning and then take away a point. This one was none, though, so I think it was a little too soon. So, besides that, Bellator 290 was obviously this past weekend, too. Sabah Hamasi versus Brendan Ward was a war. Johnny Evelyn is the man, dude. Like, he dominantly defeated Tokov.
Freak.
Yeah, I like him a lot. I think that he could be, like, a top UFC middleweight along with, like, Bellator. He's beaten some guys, man. Tokov, Musasi. This dude hasn't even looked phased in the cage the whole time he's been in at least the fights that I've seen him in. He's just straight dominated every single one of them. So I think that Johnny Evelyn is the real deal. And he's got that, dude, he's ginger. You know what I'm saying? Good for him. I think that's a plus, and at least in my book.
Dude, he's got the Brock Lesnar field. Especially at this fight, you saw the suplex.
Oh God, that was nasty.
That was freaking ridiculous.
And Tokov ain't easy to take down.
Oh my!
That's like the other thing.
But you wouldn't think so from this fight. Every single, like, grappling exchange was just Johnny Evelyn just dominating.
Yeah, unreal. ATT has something crazy on their hands in that guy. And then you had the main event too with Fedor versus Ryan Bader. I don't know about you. I know I talked about it a tiny bit to you before the pod, but, like, I didn't think Fedor really had much of a chance. And
no,
he was great in his day, but
yeah,
Ryan Bader is still, like, a force in Bellator, and I think that matchup, if you wanted Fedor to win, was just a bad one.
Just another instance of these legends just being just carted out and stuff.
I thought you were going to say Bellator shooting themselves in the foot. That's what I was going to say. Because they love to do that, man. And this fight was another one. Like, you can't give a legend like that a guy who you might beat instead of Ryan Bader. Like, come on. And I love Bader, too, saying, like, yeah, I'm ready to be the villain. Like, what do you want me to do? Go in there and lose? Like, exactly. Right from there, I was like, okay, Bader's not afraid of this guy whatsoever. I mean, when you go in there, how old is Fedor? I don't want to get it wrong, but he's in his 40s. He's 46. I go on, like, Google, when you look it up, he doesn't have a birthday. It's just 1976. That's a little scary if you think about it. He's a scary individual.
Well, yeah, for the dude to be 46, doing what he's doing.
Yeah, I mean, he's had wins, too, recently. I'm about to go on his Tapology and, like, look into some of his career. Because he was, like, his day was Pride. Like, he was the guy in Pride. And that was before really our time watching MMA. But you read about Fedor and you listen to people talk about him. And this dude was legit. There's no two ways about it. Unless you're Dana White and you just want to shit on him because he didn't want to sign with the UFC. But beat Heath Herring, Nogueira, Gary Goodrich, Mark Coleman, Kevin Randleman. Oh my God, there's so many. Mark Hunt, Matt Lindland, Tim Sylvia, Andrei Arlovsky, Shinya Aoki. Oh my God.
You have a point about the whole instance about Bellator shooting themselves in the foot too, but I got reminded of the Shogun fight, and so this is actually kind of a conversation from when I was watching the MMA Hour before the Brazil pay-per-view.
Sure.
But before the Shogun fight, Ariel was saying something along the line. Oh no, this is afterwards because yeah, he's talking about the fight itself. But it was afterwards him talking about like. So there's like two sides to this coin, right? So you either give the legend a guy like a guy who's up and coming, like not known really at all, not all that skilled and stuff. Like obviously a long way to go, and then you're taking on a guy who's already went that long way. So you give him that guy to like maybe like all right, so the guy if he wins, he puts on a nice performance. Even if he loses, like he can get his name out there, and then we can maybe push him a little bit depending on how like he wants to fight. And also like we're giving the legend like a beatable opponent, like albeit like way younger and stuff, but beatable, just simply not as skilled, hasn't been in the cage as long as he hasn't fought the guys that he has, the fights, all of that stuff. So there's that side where you could be like, and then if the legend loses to that guy, it's like, come on, like you couldn't give him like a more like well-known, respectable name that like people could be like, oh, I get it, like it makes sense, like maybe we weren't really expecting him to win this fight. Whereas like, okay, maybe a lot of people were, especially being in Brazil too, I think a lot of people were expecting Shogun to win that fight. And then you have this instance where Fedor's taking on the freaking champion, and then obviously gets just destroyed in like the first freaking like minute of the fight. So it's like it's a really like interesting dynamic that had me thinking. I kind of want to get like your thoughts on it, like which one like you would prefer. So like the way you were talking about this fight was, like come on, you're giving this dude Ryan freaking Bader to get sent out on. No, no free ads. But you're giving this guy Brian Bader get sent out on.
Yeah,
Or you give the legend a guy like no one really knows about, but he's younger, he's up and coming, and then if he loses, like
I think it depends on the person. And Fedor, to his credit, even at his older age, he's still been beating guys in the past few years. Like not everybody, but he's had some wins. And I think about when you were talking about that, one of the fights that came to my mind was Frankie Edgar and Chris Gutierrez. I thought that was a good matchup, even at the time, like, because it was very similar to, like, the blueprint you were giving. Because, like, Gutierrez, obviously nowhere near as experienced as Frankie Edgar, but Frankie Edgar was definitely on, like, the downtrend at that point. And Gutierrez, he won the fight dominantly with that flying knee. And now he has a name that you can push. And I think that wasn't disrespectful to do to Frankie, because you gave him a guy that he had a chance at beating, but not a guy that was a guaranteed win. I think that's more respectable. Like, just because you wanna respect what they've done by not just feeding them to somebody who's gonna literally just kill them, but at the same time you don't want to give them a gimme, because that in a way is disrespecting them too. You're like, you did all this and you're saying I can't beat anybody now, like, because that's kind of how I view it with Tony. That's why I wanted to see Tony versus Conor, because I think they're at like an interesting crossroads here, because they both lost a couple, and I think that this could be good for one.
I love those kinds of fights too, where like whether it's two guys that had their heyday and now they're at this crossroads and they're meeting, or just two legends just like either running back a fight from when they're both in their prime or like very young, or just two legends that are just like both on their way out and then just decide like, hey, like what better time to put this fight together. Like, what was it, the Matt Brown versus Carlos Condit fight?
For what like reason? Like what
like one of there's an instance of like just two like OGs that like obviously would have put on a great fight back in their day, but we don't get it until
I remember
this
that.
late in their careers.
Okay, yeah, because I was in like, I want to say I was in like Abu Dhabi, but I'm not sure. That was a good fight. I remember that one. It was close too at the time. Even old fighters like in Robbie Lawler versus Nick Diaz, like obviously it wasn't the way the first fight was, but it was fun. Like it was entertaining while it lasted. They were at very similar points.
And like, I just
true fight think it should
fans,
be middle
like,
ground.
Yeah, I think true fight fans always appreciate that too.
Yeah, and those walkouts were incredible. That fight, I just loved that. I've watched that a few times. You know whose walkouts I was actually watching recently too? It was Ben Askren with the Give Up the Funk. I always loved that. I wish he was still around, man.
Yeah, I should have wore the Funky Ben shirt.
Dude, yeah, you're right. Honestly, instead I'm wearing a Jose Canseco jersey. But not really much else to talk about for this one. I think next week we're gonna have a ton to talk about once this main event between Alexander Volkanovski and Islam Makhachev is over. The fact that it's Super Bowl weekend too, I think is kind of cool. Like, you know, you're going right from that to the Super Bowl, so that's kind of dope. Who you got in the Super Bowl?
But like, and also, so before that,
before
yeah.
we'll end with
but
the
also
Super Bowl.
like now is like, especially in that instance, the day before, you know, the country is going to be watching like this one sporting event. Like, you would think like UFC like would really go all out to promote this fight. Like, hey, don't forget that this is happening the day before, you know. So yeah, that's pretty unfortunate. But yeah. Anyways, the Super Bowl prediction.
Sure.
I'll give you even an exact score prediction.
Okay.
It will be a score of 34-27. The Philadelphia Eagles, Super Bowl champion.
I like that. I'm on the Eagles train right now. I like Jalen Hurts. I like
do
all of their
keep
players.
going back, and I think the Eagles straight up just have the better roster, but the Chiefs just have, you know, the experience and, you know,
Great team
arguably,
chemistry.
yeah, one of the best coaches ever, one of the best quarterbacks ever, yeah. So
the fact that we get one of the biggest fights in UFC history, and then we're going to be getting one of the better games in NFL history in terms of like both rosters. I'm excited for it, but I got the Eagles too. I don't know about a score, but you know,
it's gonna be an electric
fly,
game.
Eagles, fly.
I think, yeah, it's in Arizona, which it's gonna be in a dome. I mean, unless I don't know what they're gonna do, if they're gonna open the roof or whatever. But even if it's in a dome or whatever, like, you know, those make for pretty like electric games and stuff. It's gonna have like, you know, like a college, like, yeah, like they. Obviously this is on the way bigger scale, but like I have that college football like national champ, not this year's college football national championship,
it was like
which was a
65-7
joke,
or something like
absolute joke. But
know.
you know, usually when you get the two best college teams going at it, like it's just straight, just the pay. Like you just see like how like passionate these guys are playing and how fast they're playing. And it's like, yeah, you see a bunch of guys that are obviously going to be in the NFL one day, and then now we're at the Super Bowl stage. So
I like this.
it's an even match. Yeah, it's an even matchup. There's a bunch of talent all throughout. It's gonna be a crazy,
Mahomes
great
and
game.
Hurts too are, you know, Mahomes obviously is much more established, but Jalen Hurts is also turning into one of the best quarterbacks in football.
I want him to show out because
I do
you know
too.
I think I've been on the Jalen Hurts train even before this season.
Same, dude. I don't understand why people. I'm not as big of a football fan as you, but even last year I remember people were just like shitting on him, and he brought them to the playoffs. I'm like, how bad could this guy be?
It's
Like,
most
if
likely because of the team he plays for. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I see
They probably
things.
hate the
I see things
fans.
along the lines. So just Jalen Hurts' draft class, just alone, like is for quarterbacks, a really talented draft class, and you have I think the consensus crowd would say that Joe Burrow's the best quarterback from the class. Or Justin Herbert, and I don't agree. I think it's Jalen Hurts, and now here's Jalen Hurts on the biggest stage to like further prove that. So
this is gonna be big.
there's a lot of storylines and stuff. The Kelsey Bowl. Shout out to the New Heights podcast. Good listen. But yeah, I'm excited. It's a
I
fun
don't know.
game.
I was, dude, this whole postseason, I was sick of it because, you know, I was already pissed enough because the Saints were awful. But, you know, so I definitely went into the playoffs a little bitter. But then when the Giants beat the Vikings.
I mean, well, the Eagles didn't have Jalen Hurts. So, I wanted to give the Saints that moral victory of beating the Eagles in Philadelphia.
Hey,
but
man, don't sleep on Uncle Rico and Gardner Minshew. He's the man, too. But
Uncle-
they have a good team. Like, that's still a good win. It was a good way to end the season, in my opinion.
The roster throughout is like super talented. So.
Yeah, but my thing is, like, they beat the Vikings. I'm talking about the Eagles now. They beat the Vikings. And then these Giants fans, dude, these Giants fans were killing me. And, you know, if any of them watched the pod, they know who they are. They thought that they were going to win, even though they had no chance. No chance.
Friends, yeah.
Pissed me off, dude. I was so sick of hearing. I was saying to my friends at work, I was like, I hope that the Eagles beat the Giants 51-3, and it wasn't that far off. They destroyed the Giants. Because my whole thing with that game was they're like, I think the Giants have a chance. I'm like, why? Explain to me how. Because the Eagles have a better quarterback. They have a better receiving core, better run game, better offensive line. And the defensive line, the Giants have a good defense, but the Eagles have one of the best offensive lines in the sport. So I was like, that kind of negates it. And you're taking away the best part of the Giants team, and the Eagles defense was already going to lock down the Giants. So when I was going into that game, I was like, the Giants, they have like a puncher's chance, going back to MMA talk. And then they got destroyed. So it sucked. I like these people. This is nothing personal. But I'm kind of glad their team lost, dude. Because they say Eagles fans are cocky, but the Giants fans, they were a little too high on their team this year, in my opinion. But they'll be good for years to come, I think. So this isn't going to be their last chance at the Eagles, in my opinion. But this Super Bowl between the Eagles and the Chiefs is going to be fun. Can't believe we're ending an MMA show with this, but next week we're going to be talking about basically the UFC's Super Bowl and Islam versus Volk. I can't wait to talk about it, but until next week, guys.